Tanuj, Garg and Atul Kasbekar, thank you so much for joining me on ETimes. It's so lovely to see you after such a long time.
Thank you. Likewise.
Listen,
very happy to be with
yeah,
you.
likewise. I know, Vicky, I haven't seen you in ages. Good to see you.
Well, your movie is releasing Looop Lapeta, and there's a lot to talk to you about, in fact, besides the movie also. But first, tell me, how did you arrive at this whole concept of Looop Lapeta? We have seen the trailer. It looks like a very quirky comedy. ये thought किसका था? अतुल आपका था या तनुज आपका?
नहीं, एक्चुअली एक हमारे दोस्त है आयुष करके, उन्होंने राइट्स ली थी एंड ही केम टू अस ने कहा कि यार ही कुडंट पुट इट टुगेदर, ही सेड यू नो कैन वी डू समथिंग टुगेदर. तो कहते हैं ना कि हर पिक्चर की अपनी स्टोरी रहती है इन द मेकिंग ऑफ इट, इन द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ इट. तो दिस इज वेरी ट्रू ओवर हियर बिकॉज एलिप्सिस के लाइफ स्पैन में ये पहली पिक्चर थी जो हमने राइट्स ली और चौथी पिक्चर है जो बनी है. तो sometimes it just takes a certain length of time. We went through 3 sets of writers, 3-4 directors, and its own little journey until finally it got made, and we're very very happy because जो होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है, and I think we're very very proud of this film.
So like Atul said, Vicky, this was actually one of the first rights we acquired, through our friend Ayush when Ellipsis just started. And ironically enough, इन 4 सालों में और बहुत सारी पिक्चरें बन चुकी हैं, हमने बनाई हैं, बना रहे हैं, but this film actually took the longest, so it's also a very special film because it was the first film that we actually decided to do together. And they say the best things are worth the wait, and I think we're so delighted and emotional actually that after so many years, a film like this is actually seeing the light of the day because by no stretch of imagination has this been an easy film to do. Anyone who's watched the original Run Lola Run knows that even back then when the film released, it was way ahead of its time. And to sort of be able to customize and adapt that film to suit an Indian context without losing its edginess is a challenge in itself, which explains why, as Atul said, we, went through different writers, multiple drafts, multiple iterations before we finally hit upon a script that we were all extremely delighted with. तो वो करने में almost 3-4 साल लग गए. तो I think hopefully जो मेहनत का फल होगा वो मीठा होगा. तो when it releases, hopefully people will enjoy it.
तापसी को किसने सिलेक्ट किया आप दोनों के बीच? Because 4 years ago when you say, I mean, Taapsee was there, but she was not as prominent on the big screen as she is today.
The film took us 4 years to put together, but we didn't approach Taapsee 4 years back. I mean, we were first waiting to get the script locked, the script that we were all mighty delighted with. For us, it was, before we approach an actor, it was important to get a script that was gold from our perspective. So Taapsee was actually, I think, approached Atul, 2 years back? If I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
About approximately 2 years back. And because the script was gold, she said yes, literally within 15 minutes of hearing it.
Actually, Taapsee सबको कहती है कि वो मीटिंग पे आई मना करने के लिए कि यार आई नो दीज पीपल, तो आई विल कम देयर और प्यार से मना कर दूंगी, आउट ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट, कॉफी पी लूंगी, समोसे खाऊंगी और आई लीव. Then she heard the script and said, okay, you know what, I'm doing this. So which is really good. But Vicky, people talk of content, whatever. तो हमारा कहना ये है कि ये पिछले 2 सालों में जो लोग अपने घर पे थे, आई थिंक बहुत सारी मैच्योरिटी हो गई है व्यूइंग ऑडियंस में इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाट यू सी एंड व्हाट यू वांट टू सी, व्हाटएवर. मैं एक सिंपल सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ. अगले पिक्चर के लिए मैंने एक बहुत ही फेमस एडिटर है प्रियांक करके, हु इज डन लूप लपेटा इनफैक्ट, तो उससे बात करी और कहा कि प्रियांक, आई हैव अ मूवी फॉर यू, विल यू लाइक टू हियर द स्क्रिप्ट? ही सेड ऑफ कोर्स, नो प्रॉब्लम, लेकिन फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, लिप सिंक के गाने हैं क्या? तो मैंने कहा नहीं है. क्यों? इसे हाँ, लिप सिंक के तो मुझे नहीं करना है. तो what used to be a standard thing of people, as we used to say, running around trees, there's a lot of people who find that a terrible distraction. So earlier movies used to be 2.5 hours, 240, over 3 hours. 2 घंटे 10 मिनट से ज्यादा अगर है तो a lot of people don't even start the film. So if you have a story to tell, you tell it in the Hollywood parameters of 2 hours. Okay. तो हमारे contracts में भी we now put it with the directors की भाई, we'll give you the chance to edit, but tell the story in 2 hours, 2 hours 5 minutes maximum. आपसे अगर फिर छाटा नहीं होता तो we'll cut it, no problem.
What made you go for Taapsee, Tanuj?
So I think we were looking, for an actress who would really be the right, blend of commerce and creative, and I think also because this film is predominantly fronted by two powerhouse actors as per the script. We needed an actress who was not just a pretty young thing, but also somebody who was a ferociously good performer. So I think Taapsee suits the bill from both the counts, right? I mean, not only has she had a great track record, but also in terms of her performance, her critical acclaim, her ability to sort of do clutter-breaking films, to sort of take the creative leap and sort of break the mold. Taapsee's, always push the envelope. So I think that's what I think Atul and I have always liked about the actors we worked with. Starting from when Atul did Neerja, the Jim Sarab, Sonam, Shreya Dhanvantri in Cheat India, Vidya back in Tumhari Sulu when she had a couple of not so successful films back then, but then shone incredibly in Tumhari Sulu, getting Neha Dhupia back, getting Malishka into it. So I think generally, call it design or call it a mental perspective. I think us as Ellipsis have always consciously veered towards actors who swim against the tide, who go against the grain. That's not to say we're looking for alternative, quote unquote art house actors, as certain people call them, which I think is a terrible bracket, but terrible way of bracketing it. But we've always tried to go with performers who we think are perfect for the script, because I think gone are the days where a script needs to chase an actor, but I think now an actor needs to chase a script, right? So we've consciously gone out for people whom we think are not only commercially viable, but more importantly, who are appropriate for the role, because I think the last couple of years at the box office and even otherwise has amply proven that actors, directors, generally talent who are just banking on perception and name value have not delivered at the box office or otherwise, right? So there's no guarantee that because you're a name, you're going to perform or you're going to deliver, right? So that myth is now, that myth has been busted. So I think the era is here for a certain kind of performers to click and work. And I think that's the sort of path and philosophy that we want to follow.
You made a point.
Also, this movie is a risk, na, Vicky? This movie is a risk at every level. For example, we asked one, two directors in the beginning, और उन्होंने कहा, यार, why would you want to mess around with a classic? मुझे नहीं करना. I don't want to touch a classic. It's a risk to pay. So we don't like to think of it as an adaptation. हमारे अंदर the word is homage. So we are paying a homage to the original Run Lola Run, because अभी, for example, उस जमाने में cell phones नहीं थे. Just the fact that you can reach from A to B by calling something in someone's pocket changes the dynamics of the whole film. Simple thing like this. So we've adapted it really, really well into Hindi, but it needs also an actress who's willing to take a punt, a leap of faith, to take a risk. And she's one of the few risk takers in the business. Baki, a lot of people play very, very safe. So
and I think very clearly people who take risks are the ones who succeed, which explains why Taapsee is at that point in her career where she is, because she's the one who's brave and takes risks.
So tell me, Tanuj, you have had this very interesting journey. We are coming back to Looop Lapeta after some time, but you started off as a journalist and then you went into making movies. How did your association with Atul start? I mean, you came into Ellipsis, or rather you formed Ellipsis towards the end of Neerja.
So I was, Vicky, as you're aware, I was always a freelance journalist, but I was also concurrently working in a different industry. But my passion always lay in media entertainment. After I went abroad, completed my MBA, came back and got into the films immediately, started working with Applause, then moved to UTV, then moved to Viacom, then finally moved to Balaji. So I think armed with almost 18 or 19 years of corporate experience, I thought it was time to branch out and do something on one's own. Now, Atul and I have always known each other for long, right? We may not have been in touch on a regular basis, but we've known each other through common friends. So I think for me, it was extremely important in my entrepreneurial journey after I left Balaji to either do it myself or to partner with somebody who I think would be a like-minded individual, So just partnering with another quote-unquote filmy, was not really, something that I was keen to do, right? At the risk of sounding, arrogant, I will say that it's crucial, to have somebody who comes with educated sensibilities, somebody who thinks like you, who perhaps consumes the similar sort of cinema, who sort of comes with a certain culture, comes with a certain vibe, right? And I think it's important for that to work, in a partnership, right? And Atul has always been in
you
the
were sitting
industry.
you were sitting jobless at Costa Coffee drinking a coffee. I said, let's start a company together.
Well, I wouldn't say I was sitting jobless. Thankfully, I've never had to be jobless in my career. But I was just chilling. Because after working non-stop for 19 years, I think it was time to take a little bit of a break. So I was in that very introspective mood about what and how and when, because a couple of offers had come my way. From actors who wanted to start their production company, from other corporates who wanted me to head up their company. But I was very, very clear in my head that I wanted to do something on my own. And I think it just. So when Atul sort of spoke to me about it, Atul had already started working on Nirja, and that's when he said, "Listen, he'd like to diversify and sort of get into content creation." Yeah, so that's when we decided to come together, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Have these two like-minded people have had their share of conflicts and differences during the last 4
Oh,
years?
of course. No, of course,
Non-stop.
Non-stop.
But we
And I
agree to
think,
disagree.
yeah.
And each one knows what the other one's set skill is. Like nobody knows legal better than him. Honestly, it's unbelievable. So even lawyers will take notes. Ki, nahi, ye fix karo. So I don't even pretend to know stuff like this. Like whereas let's say my connection with directors and so on and so forth, especially the ones from advertising, is very solid. So he's forgotten more about production than I will ever learn. To be fair. So I think it's super important to complement skills and know ki, yeah, this is my domain. So if he says this is the way we need to do it, I don't mess around with that. I said, yeah, okay, done. You're the boss on that front. And if I tell him, let me handle this director, I'll sort it out. He'll say, cool, do your thing. I think that's really important not to
Yeah, I think
have an ego about it.
Yeah, I think Atul is right. I think it's just basically, Vicky, respect for each other's skill sets. I think that's really, really crucial. So there are perspectives that we share with each other, and trust me, 8 out of 10 times we don't agree with each other. But I think that's what makes it healthy, because I would be extremely worried if we were constantly agreeing with each other, because that would actually make me concerned. So I think the fact that we argue, we debate, we fight, I think that's I think it's all for the good of the film. It's all for the good of the company, which also explains why in all these years, we've managed to, I'd like to believe, do pretty well for ourselves. I think we've had a couple of releases. They've all stood for something or the other. They've all been profitable films. They've all yielded a consistently strong return on investment. It's created Ellipsis, the brand, within the industry, outside the industry. And I think going forward with the kind of lineup we're hoping to put together and already have, I think we're looking at exponential growth, God willing.
Nija and Tumari salute, of course, but were you happy with Why Cheat India, the response that you got?
So no, of course, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that Why Cheat India, I mean, we all know it didn't perform as well as the box office that we thought it should have. Having said that, the 2 points that I will say in favor of Why Cheat India is that we still continue to maintain, as most people do, that it was a fantastic story. I think nobody had tackled the scams in the Indian education system, and in line with our philosophy of always tackling bold, unconventional, unexplored themes, we were really excited about the film at a story level. And we continue to maintain, like I said earlier, that it's a fantastic story. But yeah, I mean, like we said, not every day is a Sunday, right? So, not everything shapes up, as well as you, hope for it to shape up. And that's part and parcel of the game. I mean, I haven't known a single, filmmaker or a single director or a single producer, who's had a 100% track record. But I will still maintain that in the last few years we've been around, we still had a 95% or a 90% or an 85% track record in that sense. That
but
said,
at the end of the day, this was still a plus film.
Yeah, I think that's important.
We've just been spoiled, even if I say so, by a certain amount of critical acclaim, which is super important, that people like the film. So it's one thing to have a commercially successful film, which for us the definition is X amount of money went in, X plus came out. Okay. So like a lot of people say, commercial film means there need to be 2 fight sequences, 1 item number, etc. There's a formula 44 for things like this, which we don't subscribe by. So and Yogi ji ki government ne abhi announced kiya ki our subsidies also coming from, rebate is coming from UP. So thank God. So now it's an even more plus film, So
yeah. So I mean, so technically when you have a film, which, because you're aware, Vicky, in most cases when films don't work, the people behind it lose their pants, right? And that's never really been the scenario for us so far, touch wood, and I hope it won't be in future as well. And I think that sort of explains why our studio partners and OTT players and whoever else has been partnering with us consistently has demonstrated that sort of faith, because they know that we're an integral, we're sort of primed with integrity. We're an honest company. We value investments. We value external investments. We're extremely cost conscious. We work within economics because nothing matters more than economics. We're not here to be delusional or sort of build castles in the air. It's extremely important to make a good film within a good budget. So I think that's what's put us in really good stead. So even a film like Cheat India, which did not do as well as one had imagined and hoped for it to do, at the box office, still ended up, being consistent in terms of its yield. I mean, there was no issue. I mean, it was still a plus film on paper. Yeah, so that's our take on Cheat India, and we still continue to maintain that it's a great story. And I know every review I read always maintained that it was a great story. But yeah, I mean, you win some, you lose some. In our case, I think we won more than we've lost, so no complaints.
So what you were saying subtly is it didn't go as the way you had envisaged. Now that makes me ask that, do both of you land up on the sets for every film? I mean, how much is the hands-on thing happening between you two?
I think one of the reasons we've come in under budget on every single film we've done is because we're very hands-on. Either Tanuj or I are on the set at almost all times, which I don't know how other people do it, but we can't imagine any other way of doing it. So
yeah, I mean, just to sort of take forward what Atul said, Vicky, I truly believe, and maybe this is just my view, and I'm open to others disagreeing with it, but I feel as a producer, you can't be sitting in an ivory tower. You can't be sitting in an office, in an air-conditioned cabin, and be delegating work and be issuing instructions and be expecting for your workforce on the field to be turning things around magically. I think eventually a producer derives respect, he derives goodwill, he derives credibility when he gets his hands dirty, right? When a producer is on ground, when he actually is on set, and he creates an example, he leads by example. When your crew members, your labor, your wage earners, your actors, who are on set, they see that the producer is sitting with them, he's hands-on, he's wired, he's monitoring things, he's checking things, he's around to support his crew if things were to go haywire. I think that's what sort of builds respect. And I've in my career never known any other way of making a film than to be a mazdoor. A producer is a mazdoor. Anybody who thinks otherwise is seriously kidding himself or is highly delusional. A producer is as much of a mazdoor as anybody else, or rather should be. So if you're not hands-on, if you're not wired, you're not proactive, you've just delegated things to your team, then in my world, in my definition, and like I said, I could be wrong, then I think you're not doing your job properly, So yeah, so we're as hands-on as it gets.
So when it comes to budget, Atul and Tanuj, you said you are having a tight leash on the budget, but you worked with big actors like Sonam, Vidya, Taapsee. Is there a tight leash on their market price also, their acting fee also? Because that is one important constituent of the budget.
So if it's not viable, we don't do it. Simple as that. There we get, there's a certain band in which we have been making our movies, other than 1-2 projects which are not yet on the floors, which are, hugely like bigger. If it's not viable from a cost perspective, there's no reason for us to waste 1.5 years of our life to do that. So we've been in a certain price band. By and large, you almost certainly, as a studio, will make your capital back, and get some change over in a worst case scenario. And that's because we've been on top of it, completely. And what needs to be spent will get spent. In fact, right now, for example, on one movie which is actually ready, both of us have turned, to the director and said, listen, if you want to further enhance the title sequence, if you want to do some animation, if you want to work on the VFX a little more, we'll open the pipeline. No problem. Go for it. Karna hai, so we'll spend where we need to. So we spend where we need to be spent. But if an actor is asking the sun, moon, and the stars and leave a few sprinkles for you, it's honestly not worth our time, because neither of us are into that. Guess what? I'm doing a film with XYZ. In fact, one of the things, Vicky, what we want to do, and we'd like to be as a company consistently doing, is give a shot at the title, even in the technical departments, okay, to people without a famous surname. So, Jim Sarb, who was, completely unknown, in Nirja, then the Manav Kaul in Tumari Sulu, had a lead in front of Vidya. He's gone through the roof since. Mitesh Mirchandani, the DOP in Nirja, he was a kid. He was in his 20s, and we took a punt on him, Ram and I, and we said, okay, let's give him a shot. You watch out now for Yash Khanna in Looop Lapeta. We're telling you now in advance. Okay, the boys come from LA. He has rewritten the rules, like the visual language in how we shot this film. So all said and done, I'm guaranteeing nominate to ho jayega wo awards. You see? So, we'll give a punt to people, Shreya Dhanvantri, who everybody now says is a great actress. We knew all along, and we took the chance on her early. So if you don't have a famous surname and you are talented, come to Ellipsis.
It has happened with you that you went to a big actor, big I mean to say, he asked for an astronomical sum or she asked for an astronomical sum, and you came home disappointed or maybe now ready for the second choice?
To be honest with you, Vicky, I think everyone knows everyone's market rates, right? So nothing is hidden, so we actually, we save ourselves the embarrassment, or we save ourselves, the entire experience of sort of getting shocked, because since we know exactly, we know who is expecting what, and we don't look down upon that, because I think everyone has a right to ask for or demand what they think they're worth, and I think to each his own. But, we approach those people or those actors, A, who are right for the script, and B, whom we know that give or take a bit, will sort of fall into our scheme of things, will fall into our economics, who will fall into our numbers, So, so honestly, to address your question, we've never been shocked or, sort of died of a cardiac arrest and hearing certain numbers, because it's not like we didn't know those numbers beforehand, right? So, I mean, we are already aware of who is expecting what. So if we feel that a film can accommodate a certain kind of an actor or a certain kind of a star, or if a certain script needs a big star to back it, then of course we have no issues in going ahead and respectfully speaking to that particular actor or director, right? But if we feel that a particular script can easily be done with a great actor who also fits the economics of our film, then I think that's a great situation for anyone to be in. And I think that's what we sort of consistently endeavor to achieve. And I think that's been repeatedly successful, because today, when we sort of speak to outsiders, to, non-industry people, to members of the audience, we increasingly realize that they're not coming to watch a film because of a particular director or actor. They're coming to watch it because the trailer gives them a certain promise, because your poster creates a certain promise, and then everybody else in the product tends to be a beneficiary by default, right? So I think the more that everybody in our industry realizes that everybody is a byproduct, or everybody is a product of a film, of a film success, I think that's when, we'll sort of become, a slightly more non-delusional industry.
You have opened doors to remakes, but are you also hook, line, and sinker to South remakes, which have become just everybody's, dinner?
I mean, okay, so I don't think we're going to bracket ourselves and say that, we're not touching South remakes, or we're not touching East remakes or West remakes. I don't think we have any, I think we don't have any such rule of thumb that we're following. I think for us, it's just about a particular subject exciting us, right? So for example, there's an incredible Bengali film that, we've seen, which we think has a great story, right? And that excited us, and that's something we're working towards adapting, right? Now, South films come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, formats, quality, structures, etc., right? South films are unfortunately only bracketed as the slightly larger than life, over the top sort of hysterical films. But that's not entirely true. There are some really, really tightly budgeted, high concept, sincerely made South films as well, So obviously, if we come across one of those, then that is more likely to be our appetite than the rest, than the typical box standard ones. Yeah.
Vicky, we're just greedy for a good story. In fact,
Yeah.
just now I was in shock. A story came to us which was basically a PDF and about a 20-pager. And I said, okay, this is great. So I have run across to Tanuj's room and said, read this quickly, because I really like this. And then he read it that night, and we have a large backlog, so I had to push it up the pile to read. And then I did the like a Zoom call with the writer who's not based in Mumbai. Turns out this is the 19-year-old kid. I kid you not. Okay, 19-year-old child who has written this. I said, 1 second, what experience do you have writing? She said, "None. I just enjoy writing, so I wrote this." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, the level of maturity this kid has come across was superb. So we like told her to adapt a few things and come back. But you never know where it comes from. I mean, Nirja was a 7-8 page draft that one of our partners, Shanti, knew the writer. Simon Quadras, and she said, "Atul, you're old enough to know this girl, Nirja Banot." I said, "Yeah, of course I know this because I was in the US studying at that time." And and there was a lot of noise then because Pan American being an American airline, the hijacking was big news, and then the girl died and so on. So I said, "I know this." It was an 8-pager, yeah. And the 8-pager, we said, "Okay, why don't you write? We'll pay you for it." And then he wrote it. We took it to Ram. Ram liked it. When he had said no to the whole universe to do a film. And he oddly enough said yes, thank God for that, and we made the movie. So you never know when. So in fact, even if somebody approaches me, maybe I shouldn't say this because I'll get bombarded, but someone approaches my Instagram, I have a stock message that says send a 7-pager to this email ID. If we like it, we'll call for more, and we will read those 7 pages. I have 4 people who read for me, and they're very disparate.
Atul, why don't you tell Vicky how old Akash is?
So Akash is in his early 30s, for God's sake. He's one child. So he's
director of Looop Lapeta.
Yeah, he's like 31, 32. So I have to keep reminding, myself that he's 5 years older than my son, for God's sake. So yeah, and this is, a shot of the title for him. Because there's a lunacy in his thought process which you need because this is a mad film. And apart from one HOD, which was because we had an ongoing deal with the post-production house, every single other thing he wanted, whether production design, sound design, the DOP, whatever, we've given him all of it, and say, you have to jile apni zindagi bana picture. So, and the thing is with Lola, we just wanted to do the damn film. Okay. So after a bunch of no's, you have to have a sincere, deep belief inside you when everyone's saying no, to it. A couple of studios said, "Yeah, we can't understand what's going on." Then like a couple of directors said, "What's wrong with you? Why would you even attempt this?" But you have to deep down sincerely believe that no, we've got something here. So I'll give you a simple example. It's my favorite thing. If I tell you, Vicky, as a studio head, "Hey, I have an idea, okay, and there are, these aliens on Earth, and there are good aliens and there are bad aliens, and they're disguised as cars, and they keep fighting this intergalactic war, and only this one kid and his girlfriend seem to know these things, and they keep changing from car to alien and alien to car, and, I need $300 million to make it, and we'll call it Transformers." Okay, you'll basically tell me, "Bhai, finish your coffee, or nikal yahan." Right? It's only after the fact that everybody's a genius. After the fact, everybody will say, yeah, that was a good idea. No, you didn't say it first. So if you want to tread down the path which we clearly want to, of not being in the same zone as everybody else, because if you're doing the same zone, there are people who are much better at it because they've been doing it for years. They know the formula and they will crack it. We have to be the differentiators. In fact, oddly enough, I'll tell you this. I bumped into Minnie Mathur, who I know for years. And Minnie said, "I'm really shocked at the kind of movies you do." I said, "What is that supposed to mean?" She said, "No, knowing you, I would have thought it would have been like a Fast and Furious kind of whatever, some zone like that, But, to pick up really sensitive topics and, and take them. For both Tanuj and I, Vicky, after you watch our movies, we'd like you to have a conversation about the movie with the friends you're at, let's say grabbing a pizza or a beer after the film is done. If you didn't speak about it, we would be quite shattered. So it's not just entertainment. We'll entertain you, and we'd like a question to be asked. We'd like to be conversation starters, and it's a question we ask ourselves when we analyze, some content. Will it start a conversation? And if it does, then that's a big green tick for us.
So to conclude, Tanuj, the movie has gone on OTT. That saves you from the pressure of the box office. One. But the reviews are going to come. Now, you have been a journalist, and today, in general also, how much importance do you give to reviews, and how much of it you subscribe to?
So, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that, there are a lot of people who ride the high horse and say, oh, we don't care for reviews. But that's a very convenient statement to make, because when reviews are positive, you suddenly say you care for reviews. When reviews are negative, you say you don't care for reviews, right? That's being bipolar. But that's not for me. And that's not something I subscribe to. I may not agree with reviews. I may disagree with certain reviews. Unfortunately, I will go on record to state that also a lot of reviews, unfortunately, don't come from a position of education, don't come from a position of experience. They're also kind of immaturely written. And I can say that because, been there, done that. But regardless of whatever they might be, right, they are an opinion at the end of the day, right? It is somebody's opinion. It is somebody's independent opinion, and therefore it needs a certain amount of respect to be given to it, whether it is complimentary or not, right? So, when a certain number of people, said that they loved the story of Cheat India but did not like the way it was executed, we lived with that, right? We lived with that. We didn't go around disagreeing or sulking because at some level you have to be mature and embrace what people are saying about your product, right? Yet in the same breath, when the world was praising Anirja, Tumhari Sullu, and even the kind of response we've been getting for the trailer of Loop Lapeta, we're quite happy to absorb that because that your work has finally paid off and you've been appreciated. So are reviews important? Hell yeah, of course reviews are important. But it's not just about media reviews. I mean, today I think with the opening up of social media, fortunately or unfortunately, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a social media account, and everybody is a film critic, a self-proclaimed, self-styled, self-appointed film critic, right? So so we're always reading everyone's views, and trust me, we may not agree with a lot of them, or we may agree with a lot of them, but it's interesting to see everyone's comments because very often it could spark off certain thoughts that you never had in your head, right? Or it might give you an insight that you had never thought of earlier, and that sort of shapes your thinking for the next project that you do.
To be very gracious, one studio that had declined Loop, okay, saw the trailer and the guy called. He said, I know I'm going to deeply, deeply regret saying no to this movie. I said, I hope so. I said, next one, सीधा हाँ बोल दे फिर. So it's fine. It's all good.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you, Tanuj, for joining me at ETimes. It was lovely talking to you.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.